So Pastor Brian wanted you to meet some new people in the Bible, just like the children are meeting new people in their neighborhood. So we're going to meet someone this morning, and his name is Balaam, and he has a talking donkey. Now, in literature, of course, we would call a donkey, given the ability to talk, personified. Giving something human characteristics like speech is a rhetorical device, for certainly a talking donkey defies Western reason. But do you think that God could make a donkey talk if he wanted? What do you know about donkeys? What do I know about donkeys? Not much. But they are supposedly stupid and stubborn, and clearly they are not supposed to have mastered speech, whether that be in Hebrew, English, or any other language. This Bible story is printed in your worship folder, but I'm going to tell it in my own words. And the children will like this because it's kind of a tall tale. Once upon a time, there was a diviner named Balaam. What's a diviner, you ask? It's a person who can perceive the present or the future by intuition or insight. It's someone who can look at the entrails of sacrificed animals or the flight of birds and decide what's going to happen. Diviners were considered to be godlike in the ancient world. And as a diviner, Balaam worshipped all the gods of the land, not just the one true God that the Israelites worshipped. Often people came to Balaam and they asked him to curse or bless things. One day, a king named Balak sent some messengers to Balaam asking him to come visit and put a curse on the Israelites. You see, there were so many Israelites that Balak was afraid they were going to overrun his land. The Israelites had no intention of entering Balak's land, but he didn't know that. Balak wanted to hire someone to curse the Israelites, and Balaam was the best one around to do that. When the messengers arrived and delivered the request, Balaam asked them if he could give them his answer in the morning. Balaam went to bed, and while he was asleep, the God of the Israelites came to talk to him. You see, God wanted to use Balaam to accomplish his purposes, even though Balaam did not honor God. In the dream, God said, "No, Balaam, you can't curse the Israelites because I like them." God had brought them out of Egypt. He had sustained them in the desert with food and water. He brought them to the promised land. God loved the Israelites. God said, Balaam should not help Balak. End of story. But after the messengers came again to Balaam with even better gifts this time, Balaam agreed to go visit Balak. So, Balaam got on his trusted donkey to make the journey to Moab. And as they were traveling, the donkey saw something in the road. Now, Balaam didn't see it, but the donkey sure did. In fear, the donkey turned off the road and ran into the field. Balaam took his stick and struck the donkey to get him to return to the road, which the donkey finally did. But God didn't want Balaam to visit Balak. So once again, the angel of the Lord appeared to the donkey along the road, this time between a vineyard and a wall. Terrified, the donkey scraped against the wall, crushing Balaam's leg in the process. Again, Balaam hit the donkey with his stick to force him to continue the journey. Once again, the angel of the Lord appeared to the donkey, this time on a very narrow part of the road where you couldn't go left and you couldn't go right. So, like many obstinate animals facing an armed angel, the donkey just lay down in the middle of the road and refused to budge. Balaam was furious and hit the donkey again very hard this time. Not at all amused himself, God opened the mouth of the donkey and made words come out. The donkey said, "What have I done to you that you hit me 3 times?" Balaam, somewhat surprised the donkey was talking, well, you made a fool of me by going into the field, scraping my leg against that wall, and lying down in the middle of the road. The donkey replied, "Aren't I the donkey you've ridden all your life? What did you think that I was going to do?" And then God opened Balaam's eyes, and Balaam saw the angel of the Lord. And the angel said, "Why did you hit your donkey 3 times? I don't like violence against animals, and I don't like it that you are on your way to help Balak. Good thing your donkey turned away and didn't bring you toward me, or I might have used this sword against you." Balaam felt guilty about beating the donkey and was sorry that God was angry with him for going to help Balak. He decided to return home, but before he could, the angel stopped him. The angel said, "Go ahead and go to Balak, but tell him only what I tell you to say." So Balaam went to visit Balak in Moab, where he became a remarkable instrument in the blessing of God's people. Unfortunately, the ending of the tale isn't great, but that's another story for another day. You have to admit this is a good story with good morals. It reminds us that sometimes God uses the most unlikely people to fulfill his purposes, but you already knew that. It also is a good story because it teaches us not to abuse animals, but hopefully most of us knew that God doesn't want us to do that either. As humans, we can often miss what's important, and this story uses an animal to teach us things that are important. We often get wisdom from our 4-legged friends. What I also love about this story is how creative God is to just get our attention. God doesn't limit himself to the peculiar or to the mundane events of life to remind us that we need to listen to him. God is always trying to tell us something, grow us, guide us. What's God telling you? Are you quiet, open, self-aware, and listening? Or is it going to take a talking donkey for God to get his point across? We give meaning to events, to things we see and experience, and God knows this. And I've found that most often, God will work through these events in our lives to help us hear him. For example, a family friend was 32 years old and was getting married in New York. He was a filmmaker and his bride was a dancer, and they seemed perfectly matched. A few weeks before the wedding, however, our friend John began to notice that he was dizzy and unbalanced. He had been diagnosed with and survived 2 bouts of brain cancer as a child and a teenager. So this loss of balance was cause for alarm. An operation was performed. A new tumor was discovered. The wedding was moved up, and a beautiful wedding day ensued. But 18 days later, after marrying, John died of brain cancer. It was startling. sad. Like most everyone who grieves, we raised our tear-stained faces to the heavens and asked, what on earth is God saying in this? But I hear God in one of the most unlikely places as I think about John and this tragic loss. It's in a book called Hot Pants. You see, as a young man, John wrote his memoir about his bouts with cancer. A decade ago, John wrote, I found God because of a feeling I couldn't find elsewhere, but only in the deepest, darkest moments of my life. A feeling that shot through me, not physically, not even in the sudden enhancement of emotions, but a new spiritual world that I felt a connection to beyond a normal mindset. This spiritual world was above and beyond my understanding, but for some reason, my heart desired it so strongly that I held on to it. Above and beyond our understanding is God's desire for a connection to us, and our desire for a connection to God. As John discovered when he had cancer, God is more concerned about who we are becoming than exactly what we're doing. So we often hear his voice in moments of conviction or assurance rather than instructing us. God's love for us is unconditional, eternal, forgiving, full of grace, refreshing, lavish, and abundant. Our hearts desire this connection, but our lives get busy. We get in the zone of routine, and we fail to foster a dynamic fellowship with God. So God uses whatever is around us, whether it's a donkey or a hospital room, a divorce, or a sunset. He uses these things to startle us awake, to open our eyes and hearts. In Jeremiah 33, God puts it this way, call to me and I will answer you and will tell you great and hidden things that you have not known. The often overlooked story of Balaam and the talking donkey is a reminder to open ourselves to God, to listen, and hopefully hear. As a congregation, we must ask God to help us hear, to ask God to help us learn, to help us become people He wants us to be. Because we may be just like Balaam. We may have to hear the truth from a donkey before we can hear it from God. Thanks for listening.